at Senate Education Committee, January 29th. And today we're going to start by giving some time to a couple of witnesses here for Mental Health Advocacy Day. With joining us by Zoom, Jason Griswold and Angela Filion, and we will let them introduce themselves. Yeah, we do this all the time with the given advocacy days. We had NEK day in here, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and now today's Mental Health Day. So we always like to give time to people who are trying to make a point across the State House. So the floor is yours. Oh, actually, we should introduce ourselves. Let's start with Senator.
Hi, Senator Keisha Rum Hinsdale, Chittenden County. Some of you.
Good afternoon, Senator David Weeks, representing Rutland County.
Seth Baumgarst, representing Bennington Senate District.
Terry Williams, representing Rutland County.
Steve Heffernan, represent the Addison County districts.
Floor is yours.
I wasn't sure who was to start.
Whichever way you want. It's up to you two. Did you coordinate or just?
No, I have the littles, so maybe we start with me and work our way to the tallers.
Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to speak today. So my name is Angela Filion, and I'm the principal for Allenbrook School, which is a pre-K through second grade school, so no one taller than me, within Williston Schools. And while my daily work is grounded in early childhood education, my testimony today will represent the shared realities of our public schools across our district and across our grade levels. I hope that it reflects the voices of our students and families, our faculty and staff, and my fellow administrators working throughout the pre-K through 12 system. So like other yes.
Where is the Allenbrook Elementary School? What district?
We're in Chittenden County, so part of Champlain Valley School District, and we're unique in that it's pre-kindergarten through second here, and then Williston Central gets 3 through 8.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. So like other educators across Vermont, we're seeing a significant increase in student mental health needs, anxiety, trauma responses, behavioral crises, and even suicidal ideation appearing earlier, lasting longer, and requiring more intensive interventions. At the same time, school budgets are tightening, and schools are now functioning as frontline mental health responders, often without the staffing structures, the training capacity, or sustainable funding to do so effectively. Public education is frequently evaluated and sometimes criticized based on academic growth measures and outcomes. What is often missing from that conversation is the reality that many students arrive at school with unmet needs, if they arrive at all, that must be addressed before learning can begin. Schools are increasingly responsible for ensuring students feel safe, regulated, nourished, and emotionally supported before instruction is even possible. This is not a shift schools have chosen, but rather one that we have been required to absorb as outside systems struggle to meet demand. At the classroom level, teachers are feeling this tension acutely. Many report feeling ill-equipped to support students' complex trauma and mental health needs, while simultaneously feeling intense pressure to maintain that academic rigor and meet performance expectations. This dual demand, care first, achievement always, places us in an unsustainable burden for our educators. Schools are required to engage in critical training, including harassment, hazing, and bullying prevention, threat assessment, chronic absenteeism, suicide prevention, and CIP, which is crisis prevention for kids who are not able to maintain regular safe bodies, and as well as being mandated reporters. These trainings are essential and life-saving. However, they often occur at the start of the school year and during school hours, requiring schools to pull their most skilled staff. This includes special educators, counselors, behavior specialists, and administrators. We're out of the buildings for full day or sometimes multi-day sessions. This has real operational consequences. Students with the highest needs temporarily lose access to their most trained adults, leaving remaining staff feeling stretched thinner. Safety risks increase, And when these trainings are unfunded and inflexible, schools are often forced to choose between the long-term preparedness and day-to-day stability. And it's unattainable position for our public schools. So mental health challenges also do not begin or end on the school day. Many originate in the home. Families are navigating significant stressors and often need support, training, and tools to help their children develop routines, emotional regulation skills, and coping strategies. Without accessibility, family-centered resources, schools are asked to carry not only the responsibility for education, but for the cumulative weight of unmet needs beyond the school setting. Pediatric offices are uniquely positioned to play a preventative role in this work. Incorporating adverse childhood experience or ACEs screeners into routine wellness visits, beginning as early as birth, would have and allow families to be connected earlier to mental health supports. Many pediatric practices already have mental health professionals on site, and so strengthening that intentional partnership between pediatric providers, families, schools, and community mental health systems would really allow for our concerns to be addressed proactively rather than reactively. Early intervention across home, school, and medical settings is more effective and more cost efficient than crisis response later. Despite the shared goals, our systems remain siloed. Schools, mental health providers, pediatricians, and state agencies often serve the same children without sufficient coordination. Schools bring essential insight into how children function across the school day, in group settings, and over time. That perspective must be included as part of any comprehensive support plan. I also want to raise a concern regarding the application of harassment, hazing, and bullying laws, particularly for children under the age of 8. Many students are entering schools with lagging social, emotional, and self-regulation skills due to increased technology use and significant family stressors. While student safety and accountability are critical, our youngest learners need developmentally appropriate instructional responses that prioritize prevention and skill building rather than early labeling or compliance-driven processes. Educators are not asking to do less. We are asking for shared responsibility, coordinated systems, and sustainable resources that reflect the scope of what public schools are being asked to do. I respectfully urge the legislature to invest in flexible, sustained funding for school-based mental health staffing, cross-agency training, early intervention efforts, and family-centered prevention supports, so schools are not left absorbing these expanding responsibilities through already limited education budgets. So I thank you so much for your time. I've never testified before, so I'm a little nervous, and also for your commitment to Vermont students, families, and public schools.
Questions from the committee? Do you have a specific budget request that you have made through any channel, or we're just talking then sort of generally about making sure we understand the issue and how it all interfaces and fits together, and that there's the funding is there? Okay, that's your feedback.
Yeah, I think one thing I can speak to is that, during the pandemic, obviously circumstances were very different and we were trying to engage and meet families' needs. So those ESSER funds were really valuable. We were able to put in positions to help remedy, but then those things all went away and our crisis still remains. So I just think it's a prioritization that we need to be considerate of.
And since we have a couple, where do you see within your testimony, where do you see the biggest holes? The biggest hole, if you will, maybe.
Yeah, it's the coordination, right? I'm obviously on the early end of things. So when kids and families enter the system, I see that there's a lot of missed opportunity in the early years of growth to wrap around and support our families. And then those students come in and we're having to pull resources and make really hard budget decisions about how to best support kiddos. And there's this tension between, what we expect kids to know and do and how kids are coming into the system that is just not matching. So I see coordination being a strong piece of that, early prevention and getting parents what they need earlier instead of hurrying up and waiting for problems to exist in the system.
Thank you. Mr. Grinville.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for letting me be here. Angela, great job. Thank you. Nice work. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Gingold, principal of Montpelier High School and former CTE director at 2 Vermont Centers. This is my 11th year as an administrator and my 16th year as a public educator. Montpelier High School has 2 full-time social workers and two full-time guidance counselors. One second. And 409 students. Prioritizing mental health is a key to ensuring our schools are truly safe and healthy for every student. To begin, let's consider what a truly safe and healthy school may look like. Consider what a safe and healthy school means today, and rather than comparing it to your past personal experiences, the environment for teens is very different now, with new challenges like technology use, vaping, cyberbullying, political uncertainty, including ICE and deportation, civil rights being taken away, and an increased awareness of mental health concerns. Does a healthy school environment include meeting students at the door, knowing students by name, a positive learning environment where all students have access to learning, warmth, food, and a caring adult? To our team, it means working with students to move beyond their comfort zones and to embrace new learning and co-curricular experiences. That's what I believe a healthy school would look like and feel like, and if you walked our halls, you would see evidence of our actions daily. Let me share how we make this a vision reality. This is how we accomplish it. We've removed all cell phones from being used from bell to bell. We measure and survey and ask students about their belonging and self-worth and safety. We've invested and overinvested our local funds to pay for student meals and snacks beyond universal free breakfast and lunch, because many of our students go without, and the school meal is the one time a day they can count on healthy food. We know students who are well-nourished can access learning more easily. We've invested in 2 social workers, teacher advisory, restorative circle practices, and identified which students need more intervention through our MTSS system to support all students, especially those who need more support during the day. Because there's a lack of outside therapists for students to access in our area, we've changed our approach to working with students and caregivers so that we can do more with fewer funds and community resources. We're seeing more and more students who are affected through anxiety, depression, ADHD that qualify for 504 plans. And beyond the obvious distress these conditions cause students, it's also a hardship for our teachers and staff who are required to balance the delicate and varied needs of these disabilities with the already difficult jobs of educating young people in a society with many conflicting pressures. MHS has invested in a part-time 504 coordinator who supports students with mental health disorders and works to provide effective accommodations. We have building-based attendance team that meets weekly to address and lower our chronic absenteeism rate. In the 22-23 school year, MHS had a chronic absenteeism rate of 39%, and we are working and trending towards a 20% or lower rate this year. Persistent cause for remaining chronic absenteeism highlights key student struggles: homelessness caused by high housing costs, illness, depression, substance abuse, limited access to alternative therapeutic schools, a shortage of therapists, anxiety, pediatricians excusing students' absences via notes, and caregivers facing similar challenges with limited support. Many struggles are beyond the school's direct control or support, which adds to the complexity in resolving these issues. MHS uses our local funds to support caregivers and families. We pay for staff to pick up and take students home. We don't have any busing at the high school to ensure access is available. MHS has invested in training all of our staff in trauma-informed practices, and we use restorative practices to work with students rather than suspending them, keeping them in school rather than excluding them. Every action we take is to support mental health, whether it costs money or staff or time, is essential for building a positive school community and enabling student success. To further illustrate what our mental health team encounters, here are some statements from our staff about current experiences they face each day. Trends I'm seeing among adolescent mental health. I am observing a trickle down of our current political climate into how young people view their world and their relationships. This looks like cancel culture in real time in classrooms, cafeteria, on social media in the form of blocking one another. A common phrase I hear is, "I cut them off." I see black and white thinking when it comes to how teens relate to their peers, adults in their lives, and teachers. This This diminishes curiosity and deters our ability to truly understand each other. I see this adding to anxiety and hypervigilance around looking for the mistakes and unintentional harm of others versus the good in all of us. I think teens lose sight of the fact that they're being in a community and being a person in a school, town, or country will evidently involve navigating difference of opinions and experiences. Sometimes this may lead to conflict, but we always have the choice to repair, which can ultimately calm nervous systems and help us come back to each other. With repair comes the space to rehumanize each other. I would add that this divisiveness and us versus them mentality has a huge impact on their mental health, and it generates anxiety, fuels more hopelessness, and adds to an attitude of what is the point of even living and contributing to this world. We're seeing a lot of nihilistic tendencies that are fueled by this political climate, and legislature could have a huge impact on modeling a way forward that is not so divisive and is truly trying to understand and work with others who have different points of view. We are seeing a lot of fragility and the inability to face challenges and discomfort. There is some entitlement and a mindset that the world is going to and needs to accommodate them. We need structures and policies that support youth while also holding them accountable so we can help young people be more resilient and develop skills to manage challenges, discomfort. We know that a phone-free school is the only way to go. This gave us back the ability to be present with one another, from being able to be more attentive in the classroom, to eye contact in the hallway, to crowded, talkative tables in the cafeteria. An addiction to stimulation. This is true for all ages, but especially teens who have been so screen dependent in the years during which their brains are still developing. Beneath this addiction is a resistance and avoidance to truly be with ourselves. We all want to suffer less, feel less alone, and feel belonging. But when we try to meet these needs with dopamine and forms of earning the maximum amount of Roblox blocks, focusing on Snapchat notifications and constant chatter, we stop practicing the skill of sitting with our distress, anxiety, gratitude, fears, and dreams. We lose our own sense of self when we exist in the virtual reality. I think we need to keep trying to help each other and teens sit with this stuff that comes up with being ourselves. We can model how to befriend all the scary stuff that could cause anxiety and depression and move through it. We're seeing a lot of addiction to nicotine vapes and addictive tendencies with cannabis and other substances. We are seeing more psychosis in young people when talking to Washington County Mental Health and other folks doing this work. We are all seeing a link between how strong cannabis is these days in youth who are developing systems like voices and other psychotic features. The rates of psychotic features in young people have skyrocketed, and there has been not enough research on how today's cannabis affects the developing brain. Lobbying against these corporations and supporting laws that make it harder for youth to access these products seems essential. There are too few accountability, treatment, or residential options for youth who get in trouble with the law. If we had more to offer youth, then we would have a greater chance of them becoming adults who have learned from their mistakes and can be healthy citizens of our communities. But instead, there's little consequence and consequential thinking that develops, and then they're continued down these paths as adults where the consequences are much, much greater and impactful for their whole lives in their communities. There needs to be a high need for mental health care. It is so important for our youth to have access to mental health care in schools. This is for many reasons, and a few of those reasons that are some of our youth would never access mental health otherwise. It's easier for students to access in school. The wait lists are so long in the community mental health, and that it's very challenging to provide therapists who have openings. Community mental health should be highly supported and should be the reimbursement for private therapists. The less we have of these services, the more we'll see mental health crisis showing up in the ER, and mental health is care prevention. Involuntary psychiatric hospitalization is a tricky subject, and there's been a lot of advocacy from the peer community, which has supported laws that make it hard to involuntarily commit someone. This was necessary, and at the same time, these laws have gone too far. We have seen time and time again that youth and adults are released from the ER and not hospitalized when they are a danger to themselves or others, and this does a disservice to everyone, especially the patient. For example, when someone is in a psychotic and refusing medication hospitalization, they are not always in their right mind to make that type of decision. And the longer the brains are psychotic, the more damage it does and the harder it is to come out. We continue to see a good number of students with high anxiety and strong aversion to doing anything that makes them anxious or uncomfortable. Presenting in class, asking questions in class, attending lunch without the guarantee of a friend to be with, etc. Avoiding these things that make us uncomfortable is human nature, but the shift is that students are often with the support of their parents want to avoid all the hard things and push for challenges to make the environment more comfortable for them. The most extreme outcome of avoiding anxious situations leads to not attending school at all, and that is the many reasons of our chronically absent students do not attend. The best way to address and eventually lessen anxiety is to acknowledge the discomfort and move through it with support instead of avoiding the environment or situation. Parents are not trying to increase their child's anxiety, of course, but are inadvertently helping them be less resilient and more anxious when they support the avoidance. We are working hard to educate students and adults about the importance of not clearing out all the obstacles in challenging situations. The work of Jonathan Haidt, Lynn Lyons, and others is a great resource for trying to help spread this message. Also, removing phones from the school environment was one tangible and very supportive thing we can do for students' mental health. Thank you for passing the law. What do we need from you? Stop adding more to our financial plate and unfunded mandates to support students and caregivers. Address challenges with addiction, vaping, healthcare, and housing. And do not believe the rhetoric that schools are broken. Our school is thriving and refuting the false narrative that our test scores are low. Montpelier scores are higher than the state and national averages in VCAP, SAT, and SAP and AP scores. Do not believe the rhetoric that large schools create efficiencies when we see the largest schools in the state to divide their students into cohorts to be known and seen. If you want to address the cost of education in Vermont, do that, but do not mess with the systems that are working and supporting our students and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, question?
Well, Jason, I mean, both of you, thank you. And Jason, you and I have talked about CTE, and we're going to go talk about it again. In this committee, we talked about it in Senate Economic Development this morning. One of the things that really struck me in our CTE conversations is that 7th grade is considered kind of an average inflection point where kids need hope and a path in order to kind of feel like they're driving towards something and, you know, have hope in their future and a graduation plan. Do you see that? And it's funny because we have elementary school and high school, you know, but I feel like something gets lost in middle school in terms of giving kids exposure and hope and making sure they have, you know, at least a professional trajectory. But I think for many people that's tied up with their mental health.
Yeah. You know, I can only speak to our Main Street Middle School here in the Capitol, right, which does an outstanding job of providing lots of extended learning experiences beyond the core content. And what I would caution against in Act 73 is a graduation requirement pathway that limits the flexibility of Act 77 and CTE involvement. If you're going to constrain graduation requirements, you're going to put a strain on those students finding that hope. I would also say that students between the grades of 7th and 11th, and probably even adults, don't always know what they're going to do. And it's about exposure and failing safe and trying different things and having experiences and not committing to, not every student in 7th grade is going to commit to what they know for later in life, right? It's about exposure and opportunity. And you know, I love CT. I was a CT director, but I think less than 25% is what I shared with you, go from their program into their field in the state. So if I'm an automotive student, less than 25% of us are staying in that program field in the state because they're going to do other things as an 18-year-old, whether it's college, further trade, or something else. And so while I understand the need and I appreciate the want to have students find that hope, I think we also need to be careful what assumptions we're making.
Can you say though, and maybe Angela, you can, like, what might they get in 7th grade that's really critical? Maybe it's not a magical age, but I know with 3rd grade and literacy now we think about, okay, let's just make sure there's some touch point in 3rd grade. Is there, you know, middle school's a very hard time. Like what are we doing in that grade to really check in on somebody and the tools and resources they have?
I can speak a little bit to that, although no one taller than me and I'm 5'2", but I will say that we have measures now. We are trying really hard to, even at the primary age, we just developed a survey for our students to take, and we call it the Engage survey. So it's like, do you have a trusted adult? Do you feel connection? What interests do you have, right? And we check on those just as much as we do the academic pieces and parts to make sure we have those kids wrapped. And it's those silent kids, right? The ones that aren't saying anything. So we do try to do those dipstick checks, and it's only as good as what kids are willing to share. But we are trying our best to keep their engagement and find their sense of belonging, even as young as, kids can tell us what they need. We just need to have mechanisms to stop, pause, and give them their voice to be able to express that. So that's just one example of what our district's doing. Everyone across pre-K through, well, I would say kindergarten through 12, we do in the Engage survey 2 times a year.
I'll just piggyback. Our whole district does the SEL survey, similar to Angela's. So is there a trusted adult? How do they feel about their own self-worth, their study skills? Do they feel safe? And then as far as the middle school does, they have a sustainability lab, which connects directly to the food shelf here, and community involvement, extended learning opportunities besides just going to class. We have a manufacturing lab, world languages in 7th and 8th grade. And I think if you really think about it, the core content is so prescribed in 7th and 8th grade that students need to see beyond the core content and see their engagement in the connection of math, literacy, science into their life, into their community, and how that connects to them and future thought.
Can you send us that survey?
I don't think through Panorama I can send you the survey, but I can probably find a way to send you questions.
Okay, kind of what I meant. Yep, thank you.
I think one more thing I just thought of, and maybe you do this too, Jason, is advisories. So in our middle level, we have a point person, a teacher, a school counselor, even principals who have small cohorts of what we call advisory, and they meet every single day. And it's a small group that they check in on with usually topics related to some of the things that they're grappling with. And it is just yet another small touch point daily to connect kids and kind of hear and think about the real world experiences that they're having. And we've built that intentionally into the middle schools and beyond.
Agreed. Yesterday in our teacher advisory had student-led conferences. So as I house and share our teacher advisory, we had a student come in with their parents and for 20 minutes talk about their academic, personal, and learning goals, not only as a 9th through 12th grader, but their future planning and what that may look like, and also their obstacles and challenges that they're facing and their action steps to take that on.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
Every day.
You've reinforced some things we've heard previously, and you've encapsulated it differently, so it's been helpful for us to hear it. So thank you very much for coming in. Thanks.
Thanks.
For your time. Thank you.
And then Julie?
Yeah. While we're getting Emily, I just didn't hear the other folks introduce themselves for here for Mental Health Day, just so I wrote it down.
They haven't.
Oh, I thought
We
we were,
talked informally at the
Okay.
time,
but that portion's over.
well, no, we can, we're still live, so why don't we do that?
Okay.
Have everybody just, we kind of do it anyway, because a couple of them weren't here, so everybody here,
Hi,
and sort of why your connection.
I'm Sarah. I'm a senior social work student at the University of Vermont, and I've been coming with Vermont Family Network. I'm Michelle. I'm also a parent support rep at Vermont Family Network and a single mother to a child with a disability in the education system.
And I'm Valerie Wood. I live in Colchester, and I'm also a family support consultant at Vermont Family Network.
My name is Amy Irish. I work for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and I oversee all of our behavioral and clinical services that are school-based.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Taylor Marshall. I'm the policy director at Department of Mental Health,
And where?
DMH, Department of Mental Health.
Okay.
Erica McLaughlin, Executive Director of Professional Learning for the Vermont Principals Association. I came to support my principals.
Okay. So now we are going to shift gears, entirely. And you recall, or you may recall, I won't presume if you do recall, but you may recall, since that we had a very quick introduction of S-161, which is a bill that I put in that explores the potential of creating a nonprofit under the terms of the federal bill, the Federal Budget Act, that is geared toward, at least the way this bill is drafted, within the confines of the entirety of that opportunity, to focus on providing opportunity for underprivileged kids through after-school programs, summer programs, and tutoring. And I guess I forgot the exact language, but that's agreed before, I think. But I thought it would be, and I worked on this over the summer, incidentally, with Secretary Saunders a little bit. That with her talked about priorities, and that tutoring came from the suggestion from Secretary Saunders. I've been thinking about after school and summer. That's when they're putting tutoring in. I think that's good idea. But anyway, we asked Emily Simmons, we asked the department and the agency, and Emily Simmons has been assigned the role of coming in to just sort of talk to us about looking at this through the eyes of the education administration. So Emily, you're on. We have Kirby with us who drafted the bill to help us as we go along.
Hi, everybody. Emily Simmons. I'm the general counsel at the Agency of Education. Thanks for having me in. Yes, Chair Bongartz, I'm the person at the agency who's been familiarizing us with the content of the Education Tax Credit Scholarship Program. To the extent that we have the information yet, one of the things that I think is going to come up in our conversation is that the Department of Treasury has been directed to issue regulations, and they're still in that process. We do not have the text of the regulations that will govern this program yet, but the congressional language is fairly detailed, and so I think we don't expect any big surprise. I don't expect any big surprises when those regulations come out. I think things like timing and initial implementation might be the main topics of those regs. So very high level, my reflections on the bill are that first, it pretty tightly hews to the requirements in the federal congressional language, adds a little bit that fits into our Vermont context with respect to the schools in Vermont that are eligible to receive publicly funded tuition, and echoes, but is a little more specific than the federal language on the emphasis of, economically disadvantaged students or students who can most benefit from additional funds. Like I said, we're waiting on those regulations, so there is this slight timing issue. I'm sure the committee will discuss it of going ahead now because we probably know enough to enact Vermont legislation, or hedging our bets and waiting until we know everything. We might feel pretty short on time in 2027 looking at legislation given the rollout of the program. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, at the agency, we're excited about the opportunity for additional funds for students who could really use the support with expanded learning opportunities. You mentioned tutoring. That's absolutely right at the top of our list, as well as summer programming and after-school programming. The amount of awards to individual students will be up to the scholarship granting organizations, but to the extent they're not $20,000 awards, smaller awards, $5,000 less, could be very impactful for students who don't qualify for legal entitlements to, title funds, IDEA funds, but nevertheless could use extra support for expanded learning and tutoring. And to the extent we can make that available, we think that's a really good thing.
So do you see any real reason for us not to go ahead with the legislation right now?
No, I mean, there's the opportunity to legislate at a later date if there are, and if I'm wrong, and if there are any surprises. I don't think you'll gum up the works in any way by passing a bill this year.
Thank you. Any questions for some? All good to go. Okay. And thank you. So we talked the last time about the many language change, summer programs, combo tutoring. So one question, I guess, that let me just suggest that it might be simplest if we just did a strike all rather than put this on the floor that has full kind of amendment that must, since it's just from us anyway, we might as well get it right the first time we take it to the Senate floor. So why don't we do that? Are people ready to go with this one?
I didn't make that.
Well, or I read them have to be today, but are you kind of ready to go? We could do it today because it's actually how long will it take you to?
I can shoot for 20 minutes. Come back.
Well, what if the other thing we could do is for people to pull it up on it's on today. You can pull it up on from today's agenda, page 2. Line. This is so uncomplicated. I think we could just trust Kirby to do it. There was a little glitch, and it was Kirby and I just did whatever. Got a tiny bit confused about. So no, the sub 2, it is a nonprofit organization with a core mission of providing educational opportunities for economically underprivileged students through after school, it should probably say after school programs, summer programs, tutoring, and similar programs, just for absolute clarity.
Yeah.
So all we're doing is adding the word programs after school, programs after summer, tutoring. It's those 3 buckets, just to make sure that it's 3 buckets, not
thinking after school summer.
Yeah, not summer tutoring.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I'm fully understanding this, this is to create a system that allows Vermont to apply for certain tax credits in the federal government.
Well, it allows individuals, Vermonters, to contribute to one of the designated nonprofit, maybe one or more, and for these purposes, that'll be the purpose of the nonprofit. And rather than get a deduction, this is the big thing about this legislation, is that rather than a deduction, you get a tax credit. So in other words, you get it back with your next year. Or if you give up to the maximum $1,700, you either get it back at the end of the year if you get a refund, or you apply to the following year. So that's why that's such
exclusively for these organizations.
Yes, just only for these, because normally you get a deduction for giving to a nonprofit. So
And that's-
this one, it's especially, you actually get a tax credit.
So why the preference for, I'm not criticizing,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So why the preference for a tax credit rather than a deduction?
That was the federal legislation. So this is a federal credit, not a state.
Federal credit, okay.
So another way to put it is we're taking advantage of the opportunity.
Got it.
Because there's I had forgotten now the number, but the anticipation is that this will, there will be several tens of billions of dollars get expended for this program, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to do the same thing with our citizens for our kids.
And this will all depend on once it passes.
No, it's already passed.
So just getting the program up and
The
running.
guidance might affect exactly some of the contours of how the nonprofit has to operate.
That's what Emily was bringing up, right? They haven't got.
The guidance. Kirby had told me that, but from the start, we don't have the guidance yet. But it's not just the city anyways until wait.
I'm on the website, and sorry if I missed this, but so with the tax deduction, right? You have to have tax liability, et cetera, et cetera. With the tax credit, usually it's up to a certain income by which you then get an actual credit. Okay, family income is eligibility for scholarship. Okay, the scholarship eligibility is 300% of area median income, which is a lot. But what is there eligibility to receive the tax credit?
Kirby or we can, Emily's still with us, so, but Kirby, you know,
Okay. It says states may count the total amount of tax credit awarded. State caps were under 2 million to 540 million.
I watched still be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you are. Oh, okay.
Kirby Dean, Legislative Council. What I'm hearing is you want a quick summary of just how the whole thing works.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this and thought, okay, that looks really simple, but
Yeah.
there's so many parameters in the federal program that states isn't going to finance. It has to go to finance.
It's a federal income tax credit for one
Yeah.
thing. That's why you got me and not one of your education attorneys.
So we wouldn't piggyback on this at the state level.
This is not intended to have a Vermont credit.
Okay.
This is under the federal legislation, HR 1 that was passed.
Uh-huh.
They created this new credit. It is for contributions to scholarship granting organizations within a state,
Mhm.
set up within the state, to provide scholarships within that state.
Mm-hmm.
But for a scholarship granting organization to participate in the federal tax credit program, it has to have some approval by the state, by an entity in the state. It could be the governor, the way it's written, or it could be an entity that's decided through state law. So for our purposes for this proposal, the governor's being given the power to decide what are the scholarship granting organizations in Vermont. And if an organization is on that list, it means people can contribute and get the federal tax credit for that contribution up to $1,700 per year.
Okay.
There are federal requirements for these organizations specifically. And I can go through this if you want.
And what I'm looking at, it looks like it's if you piggyback with a state tax credit.
Yeah, I think there's a provision saying that if there's a state tax credit, you can't double the federal credit.
Right. No, I mean,
Yeah, but that's not being proposed.
right. It just. It has a number, congress.gov has a number of design elements that states can consider, but it looks like those design elements don't apply to the federal tax credit. Basically,
It sounds like you're talking about design elements if a state wanted to create its own credit.
I'm thinking that. So we can't put any parameters about which organizations are eligible for the federal tax credit.
We can, and this bill does. The additional, so there's all of the federal requirements that it has to meet, and you mentioned one of them, which is that I believe 90% of the scholarships handed out have to be to students under a certain.
I think 300% of area people.
Yeah, we talked, and when I walked through this before, I think
300,000.
we talked about it in Vermont on average.
Yeah.
It's in the 300.
Yeah.
Household income range. So the one requirement that's being added beyond federal law here is that the nonprofit organization has to have a core mission of providing educational opportunities to economically underprivileged students through after school programs, summer programs, tutoring and similar programs. So it's articles of incorporation will need to have a mission statement similar to that. When the governor and AOE presumably goes to review potential SGOs that would be added to the list for Vermont and we can contribute to, they'll make sure that that requirement's met in addition to the federal requirement.
Okay, but we couldn't touch the eligibility to receive the tax credit and the amount of tax credit you can receive up to $1,700. That's federal. Wow.
That's a good question. You're talking about putting extra limit, like means testing the taxpayer, for instance.
Yeah.
That's probably beyond the power that's given to Vermont here.
But the tax deduction is one thing, but a tax credit.
But it's federal, so
It's
one
federal,
level.
yeah.
So at one level, we could argue we want to be tested because we want to be like give to these organizations for underprivileged kids. And especially because it's solely federal tax credit.
Well,
But really, the state has control over or recognizing the SGOs.
Yeah,
So
okay.
anything beyond that is difficult.
mm-hmm. See the liability, credit exceeds their liability will not receive the difference. Okay.
So it's not effective.
It's, yes, okay, that was important to me. Their tax liabilities will be able to carry forward their unused credits. Okay. Taxpayers will not be allowed to claim both the scholarship contribution tax credit and the itemized deduction for charitable contributions.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's typical of federal tax law.
Right.
No double counting for these sorts of things.
Will reduce federal revenues by 26 billion for the next 10 years. I mean, that's generally the philosophical problem with the tax credit is different than a tax deduction.
My takeaway from that large number is that they really think that there's a lot of people in this country who want to give a lot of money for scholarships or education.
Well, that's why I'm just worried about who's eligible to receive the money, so it doesn't open up a whole new category of organization.
You could put limits on the organizations
Mhm,
like is being done already here.
mhm, right.
So if you wanted mean testing for the students receiving
Mhm,
a scholarship, then that could be done through putting extra requirements on SGOs that will be recognized in Vermont. So you could do that.
right.
But as far as mean testing as it applies to the taxpayer, that would be trying to modify the federal law aspect of this. And at this moment, just off the cuff, I'm not seeing a pathway for Vermont to be able to do that.
So what's your issue?
I'm trying to make sure I understand the impact this has and what kind of organizations.
Can receive the money and
It sounds like through this, a new organization can't prop up to receive the money
It has to be approved by the governor.
and fit within the parameters of,
Yeah.
I see your concern.
yeah.
And this, this bill also has a little additional language giving the governor express power to audit these organizations and to look into it
Mhm.
to try to, bad organization.
I mean, it says, so one thing it says is, the requirements they must meet are interesting. And a scholarship granting organization must spend at least 90% of its income on scholarships for eligible students. As a result of this requirement, it's likely that qualified SGOs will be either newly created nonprofits or institutions already operating in states with existing tax credit scholarship programs because they have similar requirements. Other requirements they must meet: offering scholarships to at least 10 students who do not all attend the same school, not offering scholarships for non-qualified expenses, not earmarking contributions for a particular student, verifying the income and family size, etc. So that's interesting. These are probably entities that in many cases will need to be set up just to provide
I think
scholarships.
that's the expectation.
Okay.
And that's, I think why Senator Von Gart's interested in getting the state law out there.
Right.
So these could be formed in the lead up to this becoming effective.
Okay.
Hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's possible. There'll only be one or two.
Right, right.
Could be under one statewide organization. If there were statewide organization that exists, they have to hang a 501c3 under it. Or I don't, it has to be 501c3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these cannot go to an elementary or secondary education institution itself.
It's directly to the students.
But it cannot provide scholarships to elementary and secondary education. That's the whole point, right? It should go to something else. Because otherwise it says these scholarships may also be referred to as vouchers, but the provision of a tax credit in exchange for a donation to an SGO separates these programs from more traditional voucher programs.
Wanted to brought up way in for
Mhm.
kids and for those three purposes.
That are not attending a school. Right.
It might be an after school program.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Yeah.
now it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Bill could be simple then.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so with that, if people, I'm not, by the way, I'm not in a rush on this, if anybody has any qualms at all. If not, if we just did it, if we were then just talking about after school program, comma, summer programs, comma, tutoring on summer programs, would that change where he's going to pay? Yeah, I'm sorry, clerk. Oh, yeah, sorry. There was our clerk, right? Yes, yeah. Senator Williams, your first job.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So we actually need a motion to do the strike law with considering us for that tiny change. So, okay. Let's go further discussion. It is S 161. Should we get that right? Yes, 161.
Okay. Senator Hashim,
Yes.
Senator Heffernan,
Yes.
Senator Von Benzia,
Yes.
Senator Weeks, yes. Senator Williams, yes. And Senator Longer,
Yes.
5-0-0.
So Kirby, you can do that in 20 minutes.
Who's going to report it?
So,
I think it should be.
yeah, it's all important.
With passion comes responsibility.
Yes.
Do we think, because you don't think it needs to go to finance?
That's not my call.
Okay.
That's gonna be a Senate call, because it's a federal, credit is the heart of it, I think,
It would,
but I mean,
right,
I don't know.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I think they'll want to know more about it.
So is that set up as if it's the strike all for,
I'll fill in.
you'll fill in, okay. So we're just gonna be surprised that we're gonna say yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you might have funny. It's the chair. Yeah. No, sorry.
A lot of that this year.
It's a good deal.
We have, if you want a quick break?
Yes.
Okay. 2:30, we have, John's gonna